and welcome back to another episode of ESPC's First Timers Club. I'm your host Megan, and today I'm chatting to Tzana Webster from Ralph Sayre, one of ESPC's solicitor estate agent member firms. We are going to be talking all about what you should do, how you should prepare to view your first property. Tzana gives a wealth of advice on this topic, so I don't want to hang around too long introducing this episode, because I think she does a really great job in talking through everything that you'll need to think about when you go and view a property. So without further ado, here's my chat with Tzana. We're here with Tzana. Tzana, I don't know if you can give us a little introduction about who you are, what you do,
of course,
just for the viewers.
I'm Tzana Webster. I'm the head of estate agency at Ralph Sayre Solicitors and Estate Agents here in Edinburgh. I basically deal with all things selling properties, viewing properties, meeting buyers, sellers. And it's fun. I enjoy it. I love property. I love interior design and love everything Scotland. So
perfect. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I think to kick off, so this episode is all about viewing property.
Yes.
Which is probably the most exciting part
yes.
of the journey, the first
Absolutely.
exciting part of the journey for first-time buyers. So just before they get to that stage, what do they need to do to prepare for going to view a property?
Okay, I would say two major things. Firstly, first and foremost, speak to a mortgage advisor. Get pre-approved. It's called a decision agreement in principle, or an AIP, an agreement in principle. And really what that is that's to find out what you can afford. What is your budget? That really helps to set out your budget. Your mortgage advisor will also kind of, work with you to say, how much do you have in your deposit, or how much excess funds do you have? Because they can kind of discuss with you to say, okay, you want to put £20,000 of cash deposit down, but you might have an extra 30 grand in your savings. So do you want to use that to pay £10,000 to £15,000 over your home report, so that can increase your budget on a type of purchase? Or do you want to use that to basically use for renovations because maybe you want a fixer-upper? So definitely getting yourself a really good mortgage advisor that can give you the advice on the style of properties and that you would want to buy, and also just help with affordability. That's key. Because I've seen so many deals fall apart where a first-time buyer will get really excited about a property they've just viewed, and then to turn out and realize once they submit the offer that they can't get the funding. So it can just be soul-destroying from there. I would also recommend speak to a solicitor. Get somebody good that's in your corner, that's behind you, that can help give you that solid advice and that can walk you through this whole process. Because when I'm meeting viewers, I'm saying to them, oh, this is so exciting, but it's also really scary, and it's also frustrating, and it's also just a little bit daunting. You're maybe viewing properties, or you're offering at closing dates, and then you're not getting your offer accepted, and that is just, I've been there, I've done it, I feel your pain, and it's sometimes not fun on there, but this is such an exciting time. I know that saying, and I'm sure it's been said on all these podcasts and the videos, but what's for you won't pass you. Mm-hmm. There's nothing more frustrating than hearing that in the minute or in the moment, but it's so true. And so finding a solicitor that will give you that right advice to help work with you, because their job is to help you get that right property. Sometimes it's for the highest bid. Sometimes it's for the lowest offer price to help your budget. They can give you that advice to make sure that you're not going to be, 3, 4, or 5 years down the line ending up with a big roof bill. They can help work through that home report and the damp issues, or things that may have been picked up in a home report, and they can kind of give you that solid advice. So those are the first two, I would say. Mortgage advisor, solicitor.
Perfect. And so if our first-time buyers, they've done all of that, they're ready, they've booked in, they're coming to a viewing. Okay. What are the first things that they should be looking out for?
Okay. Well, firstly, do they know the area? Is this an area that they want? Do the research on the area, the research on the property itself, because I can tell you, probably from an agent's perspective, things that we get frustrated with is if you see 3F or 4F in the advert, that means it's a top floor flat, or usually it's a top floor flat. And the number of times I've gotten feedback from viewers saying, well, we didn't really want a top floor flat. And I'm like, it's there, it's noted. It says, top floor flat, or a third out of the, top floor. So that, I would say, is know the advert, feel comfortable with it, kind of research that, understand what your compromises are. So when I was buying the first time, getting outdoor space in a city center location was really important to me. And so we were prepared to compromise on space. So we still wanted 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, but we were prepared to compromise on not having the biggest lounge dining area or open plan lounge dining kitchen area, or even the biggest bedrooms, so that we could have a lot of outdoor space. And we ended up with something. We researched, we found the right property, and we got something with big enough space. So I would say research those, work on what your compromises are, and as well, kind of know the area, know the location. what do you want to be close to? Are you wanting something that's close to your work or close to your family? What are the transport links if you're thinking about that commute? Those are all really good things that you should look out for. If you're then coming to the viewing, things that you should look out for is, I always say, check in the corners of the ceilings because you want to see, is there staining up there? Have I noticed crack or peeling paint? Check in the corners of the down by the ground. Is there anything that was noted in the home report that said that there's some moisture readings? Ask the agent or ask the seller. I noticed that on the home report it had a category 2 for damp readings. Where were those? What is that? Should it be something? Have you had those investigated? So those are all kind of cues and things you should look up. So you would want to check those.
Perfect. And I think another thing is that it's not always, it's not always the seller that does the viewing. It can be an agent.
I do a lot of viewings. Yes.
A seller. Is there anything that are red flags that you could, apart from what you've just mentioned, is there anything else people should look out for in terms of...
the area. I don't know if you guys have seen it. There's a recent article in Edinburgh Live about a guy in Dalgety Bay that's trying to sell his mum's home.
Okay.
And the neighbor is calling it an art installation, but it's like a bunch of rubbish. And it's in the front garden, the back garden, and it's like overtowering it. And he's saying that during viewings, potential buyers are put off because they're saying there's literally a tower of rubbish in the front garden and the rear garden. It's off-putting. So I would say checking out what the neighborhood's like. To be fair, I'm going through a home renovation of my own, so I'm sure my neighbors are probably saying, look in their garden to me. But we are trying. So yeah, but those are always big things. You want to check out the neighborhood. You want to check out the neighbors. You can ask if the agent or the sellers, if they know something, they do need to tell you. So typical things that I ask is, or that I have viewers ask me, why are the sellers selling? That's a good question. Sometimes it is they have a relocation for work. Sometimes it's part of a rental portfolio and they don't want the property anymore and maybe they want to release cash to invest it somewhere else. Those are always big things. I usually will ask sellers, like, give me some info about the house or the tenement. What are the other neighbors like? So those are some other things. What does the tenement stair smell like? That's something else. What does the area smell like? If there's strong smells, that might mean that there's some sewage problems. There's stuff going on. So yeah, those are kind of big things that you would want to look out at. You would also typically look, again, when you're reading through the home report, the surveyor should pick up on some of those key points, and then you're wanting to kind of flag up some of those kind of queries from there. So if the surveyor is mentioning, there's some water spillage in the bathroom, those are big ones, and, the silicone around the bath or the shower tray, the surveyor will usually pinpoint those because they can cause water to be trapped in the back, which may cause some rot or some damage underneath in the floorboards. And when you're ripping out your bathroom, or you may not have budgeted for a new bathroom replacement, that can be costly. So those are usually things that you would want to be picking up with. I think that would probably be some of my key points that I would be saying for it there.
Yeah, and sorry, so what I mentioned before about that sometimes it's the seller that does it, sometimes it's the agent. Are there any areas or questions you shouldn't be asking? Is there anything that is not allowed at viewings?
Usually, because I have people that ask that, you may not be able to tell me, but I'm going to ask it anyways. And I always say, what's the worst I'm going to do is say, no, I can't answer that. So I would always try to ask it. There's some really invasive questions that if it's the seller themselves, again, it's a vulnerable position for them to be in, to allow somebody else in their home. They're nervous usually, like, will somebody love it as much as I do? So having that one-to-one may sometimes be a bit kind of scary, both for you and for them, because sometimes viewers feel like they can't be as open and honest and ask questions they would want to for fear of hurting the feelings of the seller. So usually if I'm doing viewings for sellers, I'm that kind of third-party buffer where it's my job to come in and sell the house or to take that information and to help even the viewer find the information that they need. Sometimes, why are they selling? If you're asking a seller that directly and a seller does give you an answer, if you push and become a bit invasive or a bit too forward, sometimes that can be off-putting because there may be situations that they don't feel comfortable talking about, like a relationship breakdown. So that might be a bit vulnerable for them, or a death in the family. Sometimes I've had situations there where maybe it's a parent had passed away and the family are selling the property, and maybe they don't want the agent to do it, or they don't want a viewing agent to cover it. They want to do it themselves. Sometimes that can be really emotional. So those are kind of some things. I try to always recommend that they steer clear of trying to agree a deal on the day, because sometimes the advice that you may receive as a buyer from your solicitor may be different than you trying to shake hands with a seller on the day. Your solicitor may say, hey, wait, you agreed this deal verbally or you shook hands on it, but did you notice that there was a category 3 on the roof for the home report, or there's a category 3 for damp? Did you ask that, or did you discuss it? Was this something that you've discussed to the seller to say, will you fix this? Or maybe we need to factor that into our offer price. So there's a couple of things that I would always kind of say, try not to discuss the offer. It doesn't stop people from asking. It really doesn't. And so what's the worst they're going to do is say no? Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we were buying, we kind of asked, and they just said the highest offer.
Yeah, and that's a part of our job is we tell our sellers, so don't be put off if the seller doesn't tell you. I tell my clients, that's what my job is. That's what you pay me a commission for, is I'm here to get you the best offer. That might be the highest price, but it might be the best purchase position or the best date of entry, the quickest date of entry. So that's what my job is and what you pay me a service for. So it's not a bad thing to put it back, the onus back on us to say, well, get your solicitor to get in touch with the agency, the solicitor state agency. So get them to get in touch. Yeah. And I would always tell my clients, push it back on us, don't answer those questions, because sometimes, and I think it's such an interesting thing. I get some people that come in and they're going to try to poker face me. So when I'm doing the viewings, they act not interested at all. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was strange. They were kind of there for 25 minutes. That's a really good viewing time. Mm-hmm. Typically viewings are 15 to 20 minutes. So if they're there any longer, they're taking photos, they're taking videos, they kind of ask questions, but they kind of had this look about them that was like, can't be bothered, or don't like it. And I'm like, okay, maybe they weren't interested. So I'm giving the seller feedback there and writing my notes. And then Monday comes in and I'm like, oh, I've got an offer from them. Like, this is weird. So you'll have some people that think they can poker face it and that's the way to play it. Others who are really exuberant. I know when I was doing the viewings, because I work in the industry, I struggled to turn off the sales side. So I was asking questions and I was like, I'm not selling this person's house. I'm trying to buy it. So I had to kind of switch that. But it was, just be yourself, be comfortable, take your time, don't rush it. Those are always good things as well.
And do you ever find that, I know you said, obviously it's not always the top offer, it's sometimes buying position. Yeah. Can it also be that they really just liked the
yes,
family or the couple that...
I don't know how technical you want me to get you. So technically, as long as it's not discrimination in any way, a seller can choose whom they want to accept the offer from. So I've had situations at closing dates that I know all of my solicitor friends are going to hate this. I get notes. I love a good cover letter with an offer, and I love a sob story with a cover letter. I can see the eyes rolling with all my friends who work in this industry. I love it. I love the story, and I think there's a lot of families who may be doing this full circle moment. Yes, usually the top offer wins. A lot of people find that on principle. It then may turn into the top offer and the first kind of what we call proceedable offer, the first person in a position that they can proceed without being incumbent, like no sales subject to, might then turn into being cash over somebody with a mortgage. So there are certain nuances that come with it, but typically there are some people, and I've had situations where families say, do you know what, I remember being a young married couple and we had a young baby and this was our first home and we've now lived here for 45 years and I met this couple and they were in the exact same position. It just reminded us of us. So that full circle moment really is priceless. So I would say as well, if you go in there, I have some clients and friends who are buying and I'm like, put your baby in front of everybody, bring it along with you for the second viewing and talk to the owners and ask them what their position is. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, you just mentioned second viewing. So we always recommend, if you can, go for second viewing. So what's your advice for second viewing?
Perfect. I guess the reason they always say try to go back for a second viewing is once your offer is accepted, they don't let you back in as a buyer until the legal missives are sold or concluded. So that will legally tie you into purchasing this property. So if you are thinking to yourself, do you know what, we didn't maybe get a good enough viewing the first time, maybe there were a lot of people there, or maybe we have questions for the homeowner or for the sales agent, or even if we want to go back and take measurements, again, those are always really important. So I would say second viewings, and it will be different depending on who the selling agent is. If the sellers are there or if it's somebody that works for the firm versus it being like a third-party viewing agent. So I have people that do ask me, can I test the water pressure? It's really important. I know it's important. I have some properties where because they're vacant homes, the water has been drained down. We can't do that, so we're only able to do what we can do. Some will say, can I test the windows? Absolutely. Those are some things. You'll have some agencies that won't let you, maybe because their insurance isn't covered for that, or even the sellers might be like, oh, it's a busy viewing and you've come back for a second viewing, so maybe I can't let you in to do that. So sometimes it's just kind of managing those expectations, and if you're wanting a kind of proper good look on your own, ask the selling agent, ask the solicitor state agency that you're viewing with to say, can I book a private appointment, one where maybe I want to ask the homeowner these questions and I don't want other people around, or maybe there's some things that I want take your measuring tape, take your measuring tape, take your measuring tape. I don't usually have one, although I know ESPC has given out measuring tapes in some of their goodie bags. Bring your measuring tape along with you. Sometimes it's also going up into the attic space, so that's a big one if there's potential to convert into the attic, or if you want to see the storage up there, or even see that potential. If I have a busy viewing day myself, I don't typically let people come in and bring down the attic, the ladders, the Ramsey ladders, for fear that it might kind of just be harmful for other people, health and safety. I've had a situation one time, I did a really busy viewing, and I kept saying, please don't go up the ladder, because it was off in a room, and they crashed through, because again, it had been like a 60-year-old, the family lived there for about 60 years, and they crashed through a wooden rung on the ladder, and I had to immediately close that door and call a contractor on the busy Sunday open viewing to say, can you come in and just board it up real fast for me? So it can be, those are situations where they try not to let you do, but typically testing appliances, that's a hard one, because again, are you going to ask a homeowner to put their washing machine on during your viewing? So you have to kind of take a lot of that on face value that, after you purchase the property, these are things that you can pick up with on a later date. Your appliances are secondhand appliances. So those are hard ones for us to, say, yes, let me put it on a full load of washing or run the, tumble dryer. So I get those questions. It's a lot of money you're investing. And typically as first-time buyers, you don't have your own white goods. You don't have your own appliances. So I understand the reason for the question. But I would say bigger ones would be asking about the water pressure, because, when you're taking that shower that first morning and then it's just a little trickle, you're like, what did I just do? Did I need to invest into a pump? Those are all sorts of things. So I usually do get asked from buyers, can I test or I'll say, do you want me to turn it on? I'll turn it on for you and you can have a look. And they never would have thought about it.
Yeah, no, it's funny, when we were viewing for ours, I remember my boyfriend asked that and I was like, oh my God, that's such a weird question. And it is, it's so important.
Especially top floor flats, because obviously water's traveling up and gravity. So top floor flats are big ones. I've had other ones where I know that the homeowners have installed a pump. So I'll say, let me turn it on for you, because I think that, to me, that's a selling feature. They've obviously invested money into it. Let me show you. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's kind of everything that I was going to touch on. Are there any other tips you have for first-time buyers starting to view properties?
When you're coming in, take your time, but also don't be surprised if things go quickly. So average time on market can be, again, it's very seasonal dependent, but you're usually 2 to 3 weeks. I think, what is the current average?
It's 22 days.
22 days. I know it usually fluctuates. I think this past year between 21 and 27 days, but that's not a long time from a buyer's perspective. Take your time in a viewing, ask the homeowner, what is the reason you're selling? Because sometimes that's a big key. And I say this because as a first-time buyer, you're considered chain-free. You're unencumbered. You've got no sale associated with you holding you back. And a lot of people who are listing their property for sale these days might have already agreed an offer for their next purchase. So having a chain-free first-time buyer coming in will be priceless. And usually you're the type of buyers that I want to attract into my properties that I'm selling. And a lot of that is because you may see that people are changing to a fixed price after the first 2 or 3 weeks. And that didn't typically happen before. We had a lot of these offering for your next purchase subject to your own sale. So again, it's really changed the dynamic of the market quite a bit. And it really puts chain-free first-time buyers in a really strong position. So don't doubt your position. Take your time, and not too much time. And understand that, sometimes for sellers, if you are asking them these questions, have you already offered on another property? What's your date of entry that you have, your preferred one? Because especially right now, obviously we're talking in October, you may have a lot of homeowners that want to be sold and in their new home before the Christmas holidays, but you might have some that want to be staying maybe one last Christmas at home. So dates of entry, when are you looking to move? Did your landlord give you a notice to quit? Are your parents driving you nuts and you want out as quickly as possible? Budget would be a big thing as well. So understanding and just knowing that anything you pay over the home report value, you must have cash for. You cannot get a mortgage for that amount. So if the property value is $170, you want to pay $180, we have to have the extra 10 grand that makes up the $170 to the $180, plus your deposit, plus all your buying fees. So sometimes that can be a bit, buyers just maybe haven't calculated that extra amount. They think that maybe I can get the mortgage for the $180. Well, that's not true. What are other things? Yeah, take photos. Ask if you can take photos and videos. To me, that was massive. I bought a house, never viewed it, because my husband, we had conflicting schedules that I wasn't able to go along to the viewing with him. But we had a very specific property type that we were looking at. So again, I work in the industry, so I'm a little bit kind of biased and know a few more things. But he took videos, and I remember sitting at dinner that night, and we beamed up the videos on our Apple TV and just went through room by room, property by property, and we studied the floor plans. And for that, it was always really good because we could go back if we had questions. And there were some questions when we were putting the offer in that we remembered, oh, let's go back to that part in the video, what happened with this, or where was that access point, or, for example, there was a room knocked down. Did we need to ask the solicitor were there paperwork for that? Or, those are always big things. And whenever I'm doing viewings for homeowners, vacant properties or occupied properties, I'll say, if you guys want to take a photo and video, feel free, because it's always something you can reference back to. Or if your partner or your parents couldn't come along with you to view, it's something that you can just have there to refer back to. Some people try to FaceTime. That's fine during the viewing if you want to FaceTime a family member or your other half. But having that video evidence you can go back to really is key. You may just forget to ask questions to your solicitor. You may just go back and say, oh, I noticed there was a freestanding washing machine. I didn't see that included in our offer to purchase. Will that be included in there? So.
Yeah. Oh no, that's perfect.
That was long. Sorry.
I think it's so valuable. So much great advice there. Also,
don't get disheartened. It's tough. This is a tough industry. It's a tough game, and it is a game. I say I play chess. I'm like the Queen's Gambit, and I'm like thinking, because that offers over as well. It's different, and the key of the offers over is for us as selling agents and for the sellers, we want to get as much exposure and interest as possible. So Edinburgh and the Lothians tend to have this kind of offers over where we list it slightly under the home report value, and that's because buyers usually are saying, well, if I maybe want to spend $300, I'll kind of set my search criteria back to $280 in case I have to spend over. So it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game, a little bit of a chess game. But yeah, don't get disheartened. Speak to the right people. Get the advice you need. They're there in your corner for a reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much,
no
Tzana,
worries.
for all your advice.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so that was my discussion with Tzana. I really hope that you enjoyed that episode. I think there was a lot of information in there, and hopefully you feel fully equipped to now go ahead and book your first viewing. If you have any questions about the process, about anything that you've seen in any of the episodes, please do leave us a comment on YouTube, or you can send us an email at marketing@espc.com. Otherwise, I'm going to be back next week with more advice for first-time buyers on their journey to buying their first home. I'll see you next week. Bye.